Welcome to Mining Now. We are filming, this is part of our third annual Australian tour series for Mining Now, and we're filming from Perth. We've got another one of these companies that we've wanted to have on for a long time. The stars never aligned. Now they have. We've got Molycop on the show, and we've got Pieter Strobos. He is the VP Commercial for Molycop. Pieter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jared. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Of course, I'm here in our studio in Vancouver. You're actually located in Perth. What facility is this that you are at right now?
So this is one of 4 facilities that we have in Perth, Australia. This is, I suppose, our global digital optimization center, where we've got about 30 people or so. So we actually service in the space of digital technology. We service the global industry from here, but we also have other offices in various places like in Toronto, in Vancouver, in South America, Mexico, the US, and several in Africa and so on.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at you're in like 40, or you're either servicing 40 countries or you're in 40 countries. I'm not sure which it is. It's like 400.
I think that's sort of just a rounded number. We're not exactly sure how many countries it is, but Molycop has 14 production facilities for grinding media globally, and it's in all the major mining regions. I think on any given day, Molycop supplies in the order of 50% of the global grinding media. We're more in the technology space, but we do service clients all over the world. In fact, continents like Africa is one of our biggest clients, I would say, all over Africa, as well as in South America. I don't think there's really a continent that Molycop is not present in.
How do you sort of, if you just sort of put it into like a 30-second thing, how do you say who they is? Obviously, the grinding media is what everybody knows Molycop for, but how do you sort of, as it's expanded, you're talking about the digital side, how do you put it?
Yeah, so Molycop, they've been actually around for more than 100 years, supplying grinding media continuously. Some of the clients we've been supplying continuously for 35, 40 years.
Wow.
Which is really amazing. So that business is very successful, and Molycop is a very reliable partner for grinding media. You know, in the mine, if you don't have grinding media, the mine stops. So with an interesting fact about Molycop is that right through COVID, they've never missed a shipment. So
Wow.
I think we're, our motto is no mine is going to stop because of Molycop. So that's in terms of a really solid foundation for Molycop, in terms of a really reliable partner in grinding media, as well as other commodities like flotation reagents. However, in the last sort of 5 years, approximately, Molycop has now gone into digital technology, which really just strengthens our relationship with our clients globally. So apart from just making sure they keep on running, we can also help them to optimize their processes now, improve their throughput, their recoveries, and their efficiency. And, that just means that Molycop is even more reliable and an essential partner for the mining industry.
I can't just let that, you said something that I can't just let go by, that
Sure.
they didn't miss a shipment through COVID, which sort of implies after COVID as well.
Sure. No, we never missed a shipment. Let's just put it that way.
That must have not been an easy feat, though.
It's quite unique, because Molycop, there is other you can't say the same for other companies.
No.
I think the fact that Molycop has so many manufacturing facilities, as well as a really good procurement facility in Singapore, for example. We buy an enormous amount of steel from China, as well as various other steel manufacturing countries in the world. One statistic I heard is I think Molycop is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, steel buyer out of China. So
Wow.
it's a really big scale that we do things on. So basically what they do is they buy bar, and then they forge it in all these plants into forged grinding media. But Molycop also has foundries where they make high chrome grinding media. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's really important for many countries where they have mining that as much of the production is local as possible for jobs for people in countries like Indonesia, in Mexico, and in South America. And I think Molycop's strong point is that they do have these regional manufacturing hubs for grinding media.
In the digital world, we're going to talk more about it, of course, but in the digital world, there's so much coming at mines now, because everybody is offering digital solution. So where does Molycop fit into that ecosystem of digitalization?
Yeah, I actually like that you're saying that. In it, one of the sort of sayings that there is, it's another guy with a silver bullet, right? And I think the problem is the mines are dying under a hail of silver bullets. Is
Yeah.
they literally sitting there trying to figure out which one is this the real silver bullet. And I think where Molycop fits into the picture is that instead of just being a technology supplier, we're a technology integrator for mining companies. So we actually evaluate which technologies we've seen working in combination at many different instances globally, and we bring it together in a package that we call a solution for a mining company. So a typical solution, for example, for milling optimization might be something like mill vibration measurements that tells us what's happening inside the mill, machine vision technology on the conveyor belts that tells us, gives us information about the material, the rock size, etc. And then density measurements, flow measurements, etc., all through the system. And then we take all those measurements and we integrate it into an advanced control system. And there's also some things that you can't control on a plant through a control system, but you can still change. For example, if you want to change your crusher size or different types of screens or the grates or the liners. So what we found over the years is that we really need to provide it another layer above the control. And what we do there is we stream all the data to the cloud. We then will model what's happening on the process. We actually have a product that we call MillRock, in which we look at the process and provide consulting and coaching as well as visualization and dashboards back to the client. So it's quite a lot of different disciplines that we bring together into a solution. It includes process control engineers, instrumentation, software people, as well as domain experts in the space that we're working on. And we would do that in milling, flotation, leaching, as well as other processes in
Oh,
a
you're doing it
typical
all
plant.
across the board there?
Absolutely, yes.
Wow.
We do both we've got solutions that includes measurement control as well as optimization in milling, flotation, and in leaching.
I'm quite curious. Have you had, because you've been working with these mines, you said 30 or 35 years, which is unique. So this is a setup here that I don't get to ask this very much because so many of the companies are newer that are coming on with the technology and the sensors.
Yeah.
So have you, and I know you probably can't give really specific examples, but have you seen examples of the mine's been doing it this way for 25, 30 years, and then 5 years ago started putting in these sensors and seeing that optimization, seeing actual production changes, the way that what you're supplying changes, whatever goes into that.
Yeah.
Have you actually seen it?
Absolutely. So what Molycop has done is that they've actually acquired a number of technology companies, including one that
I
I've been associated with. So it did mean that Molycop could ramp up this offering very quickly.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, there's many examples and case studies, but one that comes to mind is we've got a client in Africa that's a company called Resolute, and they've got one of their mines called Mako, And they implemented the full solution of what we supply, which is the mill slicer, mill vibration measurements, as well as the advanced control and the consulting and coaching. Within 3 months, they published on the Australian Stock Exchange that we helped them to improve their throughput by 7%. 3 months of the initial implementation, that is. And then without any prompt from us, and obviously they're telling their shareholders, so it must be it must be something that actually reflected in the end of the day on their accounts, because this comes from the accounts and the corporate side. It's not just on the mine. But what's also interesting is approximately 1 year later, they did another or exactly 1 year later, they did another publication on the ASX, on the Australian Stock Exchange, where they said that through the implementation and the use of these measurements and control systems, they were able to reduce their plant shutdowns for the year by 25%. Now, that means they went from,
25%.
so they probably went from, let's say, 4 shutdowns down to 3 shutdowns. So if you were if you understood what's happening on a mine, everything is planned around shutdowns. I mean, how long your liners last actually dictates when your next shutdown is. And typically a mine would spend like in the order of $10 to $20 million on a shutdown. So the fact that we were able to help them operate their mill in such a way that they did less damage to their liners while still increasing the throughput was a really big benefit for them. So, I think that is a really good example of how clients have actually used these optimization strategies.
So what would be getting adjusted so they're getting all this information. What are they adjusting that's making that happen? What's physically happening at the mine?
Okay, so all mines, or most mines, consist of a mill. Could be a SAG or a ball mill, and they feed the rocks in there, and they need to grind the material down from 150 mil rocks after it comes out of the crusher down to 10 to say 50 to 100 to 200 microns. So that's the purpose of the grinding circuit. Now, the problem with a big mill, and you've got a picture on your left hand side there behind you, you can't see in there. You can't see what's happening in that mill. But it's really important to control the volume inside that mill. If the mill is not at the correct volume, and that includes the rocks and the grinding media that's in that mill, if you get the incorrect volume, you can either smash your liners or you're not smashing the rocks. So, and that, a lot of these mines can run at 500, 1,000 or even more tons per hour. So the rocks are coming in very fast. You have to add water, and you have to get the mixture right in that mill. You have to get the level right. So what we would adjust is the feed rate to the mill. We would adjust the speed to the mill. We'll adjust the water addition rate to the mill, all on a second by second basis, and then optimize the performance of it. Then typically what happens is the mill respond differently from when you have new liners to when the liners are worn out. So that could be anywhere from 3 months to a year to 2 years that a set of liners can last you. But you really need to understand that where and what's happening and how it impacts the performance in the mill as well. So these are some of the things that we can measure with various sensors, like, for example, the mill slicer vibration sensors on the mill.
Well, is when you're talking to clients, is the demand, I mean, the pressure on mines, like things like decarbonization, those kind of pressures are now really, I mean, the mines feel it. There's the regulations, especially if you got like a new mine coming on, but even the old operating mines. Has the demand shifted completely now? Are we at a stage now, like, is there any resistance to what you're trying to implement in the mines now?
It's definitely starting to filter through to mining companies. For example, in Australia, the new legislation requires mining companies to reduce their carbon footprint on a year-to-year basis by, I think we're looking at 5% a year. and
Okay.
then it's going to be a few years, then they have to be at net zero. Now, what's interesting is it's not a sort of waterfall approach. It's not like we're going to wait 5 years and then overnight you have to be at net zero. It's a stepwise process. So that is where we can really help mining companies, in the sense that you need to improve that efficiency. How much kilowatt hours per ton you're using to grind the rocks and so on, and how much reagents you're using, what's your recovery rates, and it all feeds into the bigger picture. Now, does it filter through? I mean, look, definitely mining companies, it's on their radar, in terms of productivity improvements on the mines. So, I mean, it's not like we just walk in and everybody orders things overnight, but I can tell you we've got, in the last 5 years, in terms of milling optimization, we've probably done in the order of 100 projects now. And
Wow.
so, it is a really important aspect of it, to, in combination with still doing it and still producing in a profitable way.
Would you have a guess, out of those 100, would half of them be operating existing clients? What would be sort of the percentage? Just roughly. Would
What
those
do
be
you
new?
mean?
A lot of new plants, or not?
Okay, no, almost all of them are plants that's already operating.
Right,
So occasionally we get a new mine. I mean, new mines don't come online that quickly, right? So our biggest market is mines that's already operating.
right.
And then mines that recently started is also a good candidate, because for those guys, typically they start off with new personnel, people that really don't know the process that well. And we have a system where we do the consulting and coaching and actually guide them through their ramp up and optimization. So, that can be very important for new mines. However, even existing mines, the big problem in the mining industry, people move around so much. You might have a good guy at one plant, but he only stays there for 18 months,
Yeah.
moves on to the next place again. And I think with what we supply, it gives that level of consistency where we can bring a new guy up to speed with how to operate that plant in a very short space of time.
Yeah, that you've kind of you've gone out to something I wanted to get to, is the training. I saw, now I don't know if this is connected, but I saw on your website you've got this training masterclass, and you've got a lot. Like, you've got day 2. I think you did something maybe it's for like Indonesia or something, and it's a yeah, you were one of the ones doing it, actually. And there's day 1 of 6, day 2 of 6. So I guess this is a 6-day training session you did. Um, so I want to get to that, but I was also wondering, with this optimization that you're seeing in mines, does that make it more accessible for people that are newer to the industry, or for these mines that are trying to get like this outflow of people that they have working for them? Does it simplify it a little bit, or is the onboarding still sort of similar?
Look, I think it's definitely, a lot of mining companies are looking at some sort of centralization where they can standardize across many, many different, all their different operations. And
Right.
it's one of the services that we can help mining companies with. Is there's two parts to the training. We do have this offline training, which is what you're referring to. But then we also have a training that we actually call more coaching, which is where we would stream in the data from a client, and we will have weekly sessions with their operational personnel, and really in a lot of detail go through things like the set points they're operating at, optimization projects and strategies that they're using. And in this way, there's a coordinated effort to always be on top of their game. And when when a person leaves or a new one comes in, they just slot into this process. And they've got people offsite, our team, that actually is sort of the custodian of that type of optimization for them, so that they don't wake up one morning and half their process engineers have resigned and they're back to square one. When a new person comes in, within a week or two, he can smoothly take over from other personnel.
How big is that value when you're talking about onboarding a client? That seems like it would stand out as a huge, huge value add for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's definitely a very big value add. A lot of clients would consider it an important part of what we do. Um, but at the end of the day, what they're also interested in is the bottom line. For example, how much throughput and recoveries does this process? What is the value that add for them? But we do actually have a number of companies now. For example, Goldfields, we've got most of their plants on this online Molrock system. We also had made some really good inroads with AngloGold Ashanti. We had good initial results at their plant in Tanzania called Gator, and now they're looking at implementing it in Australia, which is interesting to think that technology is being implemented in Africa. Now we're bringing it back to Australia. And now it's going back to Africa to another mine, Suguri, there again. We had also really good inroads into various companies in Canada and in the US as well. So, I think it's at that group level, as these takeovers and mergers of different companies, it happens all the time. And the problem is there's different cultures and things in different plants. And how do you get everybody doing the same thing and operating at the same standard that a corporate body, a corporate company like a Goldfields, for example, expect?
When you talk about like remote support, did COVID expedite people? Was that already in play, or did COVID expedite that offering?
It definitely expedited this a lot. I think during COVID, we probably added, many clients. I don't want to quote a number now, but it was, in the order of probably 20 plus clients to
Right.
these types of systems that we provide. And it's because of actually some of these projects we've done. For example, in Kazakhstan, we've done a project, and we've done some in Africa where we supplied them with the equipment. We did so we sold it, we supplied the equipment, we did the control system, and we helped them with optimizing the plant without ever visiting the plant. Now, it's not something we would advocate that we're going to say we never will visit a plant. There's definitely a lot of value to be added to visit our clients as well. However, a lot of these clients, we've done it like that. We've never visited them. Everything was done remotely.
Yeah, well, I mean, the world has changed. I mean, we're talking here remotely. There was a time when everybody thought you had to do it in person, and we've seen stats. We see the back end of how long people watch interviews for and things like that, and people want information. They just want it to be right. At the end of the day, you're talking about the bottom line. That's what your clients care about. They care about that the number that they need to get to is gotten to. If that service quicker, and I would imagine that that's a big thing as well, right? If mines all over the world, even for you, not centralized, because you talked about how important it is to be localized.
Yeah.
But if you've got an expert in a field that's servicing one mine, well, all of a sudden with that remote servicing, they can support a mine out in Africa, even if they're from Australia, which is pretty. I mean, 20 years ago, that just you couldn't
It's
do that.
unheard of, yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
there's been a big push through Africa to not have as many expats on the mines. They want the local personnel to be trained and to be upskilled in order to do that work. And I think these types of tools are really invaluable in that space, because it means that we don't take over the people's jobs. We just help, assist, and coach them to be able to operate at a world-class level without having to actually send an expat to work on the plant for extended periods of time. And I think it's this localization has been a big trend globally. And, I'm fully supportive of that. If you look at the history of Africa and even other countries, I mean, quite often they feel like they haven't actually seen the benefits of their natural resources.
For
And
sure.
yeah, in this way, I think we help with that because we help them to upskill their own people in the country. And you know, we do these training courses, we help them remotely, we go and do master classes, etc. So yeah, that's sort of, I think, one of the services that Molycop does to the provides to the global mining industry.
What is your day to day with the company? I usually ask that at the beginning, and I just missed that question. But it would.
I don't know. They called me VP commercial, and I was like, "What does that mean?" And I tell people it just means a jack of all trades. So
Ah.
look, I look at new product development for the company and new business development. We actually just been to Germany and Spain to, for example, look at new technologies we want to bring into the group. We do some R&D projects in terms of optimizing, using the information we have to further optimize the processes. So we always look for what else we can add to a solution that will help clients to get the maximum benefit from it. Also, there's a big role for me that I visit clients all over the world. I'm going to DRC in a week or two in November. We'll be visiting something like 10 mines there, as well as Senegal, Guinea, and Tanzania. So yeah, that's sort of the areas that I work in.
What? Because you said you were with a company that got acquired by Molycop, right?
That's right.
So, what through the years working in the industry, what has been something that came in front, like a technology, something that you're working on, or something that was implemented that you went, "Wow, that it's different now. That this does change how mining is done." Is there anything that stood out to you over the years?
Look, I do think that everything, all if you look at implementing these solutions that we provide, is really a game changer for a lot of mining companies, because unfortunately you go to a lot of places and you think they'd be on top of their game, and everything is really running like you'd expect things to run in the 20th century. But quite often in the mining industry, there's a lot of challenges that means it can't be, or it isn't that great. So actually going into a mining company and looking at the way they measure things, putting that into a control system, helping them with their data, and helping them to actually make a very big step change. Like we've had some clients where over the space of a few months, we help them improve their throughput by something like 27%, which it sounds embarrassingly high, because but that made a massive difference to that company, and I think, to me, that's what excites me, is actually seeing that improvement. But there has been a few game-changing technologies, like now, for example, with advanced control systems, we can do what we call model predictive control, where we actually predict what will happen to the plant into the future. And we use things like these vibration sensors to see inside the mill, literally get a really good idea of what's happening in there, whereas 20 years ago, this just wasn't possible.
Yeah, well, that's you go. So I've worked in the used mining world. So you go and you'll see like these, you'll see ball mills and that, and they'll be hollowed out in spots.
Yeah,
Like they
yeah.
didn't know what was going on. They destroyed the mills, to be almost unusable, which is unbelievable. I mean, that's a huge investment that's just down the drain.
Yeah, I mean, they all wear out eventually, because
Right.
you're crushing rocks in there, and so they wear, right? But eventually, depending on the hardness of the ore, you're going to have to replace the liners inside the mill. But you're absolutely right. If you don't get that right, you can actually run those liners completely through and destroy the mill shell as well, which then you get a big problem. The
Yeah.
other thing that happens is that the mills don't work properly, and they actually bog the mill, which means, if you ever imagine, if you take like for example, a bottle of water, and you fill it completely with water and you roll it, right? It just keeps rolling. But if you fill it halfway, with water. It's not going to
Right.
roll that easily, and that's actually what a mill does. But if you overfill it, it becomes like a bottle. It just got its own momentum, and you can't actually empty it anymore. It's bogged. It's completely full now, and it's just spinning, which means you have to stop the mill and you have to dig it out. Now, that's a massive effort. So if you don't, you get two days shutdown. So I think these are the sort of situations that we try and avoid with better control.
So you were referencing, I forget what you now the term you used. I should remember it, but I was thinking of it as AI. I think you used a different term. Is that what you were referencing when you talked about like control technology and what the mill's actually going to be doing in the future? Is that an AI element or is that something different?
The parts of it is definitely an AI element or a machine learning element. So we actually do use artificial intelligence and machine learning in various aspects of our business. For example, in machine vision technology, we teach our system to recognize rocks, recognize the size, the shape, and the texture of it. And then also using AI elements to optimize the mill. For example, we use a thing called a real-time optimizer where we look for opportunities to optimize the process. For example, if you can run at 200 micron size, but you're sitting at 150 microns, it means that you can coarsen that grind up to with another 50 microns, which means now there's an exponential relationship between the power used and how fine you grind. So if you can coarsen up by 50 microns, you can either put a lot more material through that mill, or you can save a lot of power. Now, this all happens automatically when we optimize them all through tools like the real-time optimizer that we use. Saying that, we're doing a lot of research on measuring things on mines because there's so many things that we don't measure. Most copper and gold mines, they actually don't know what's going up the conveyor belt into the mill. They don't know what the grade is. They find out later because they take samples, but they'll find out 2 or 3 days later. But we're looking at now developing technologies that can do it in real time for mining companies.
When you talk about onboarding, that's the other thing I want to talk about is when you're talking about going to a mine and getting it 25% increase in throughput, which is staggering. But what is that process look, the actual onboarding of the technology and the optimization?
Yeah, so there's different aspects to it. Like I've told you, we do actually have a very big multidisciplinary team here. So part of it is actually implementing new instruments. So there we've got instrumentation and process engineers that will go to mines and help them implement things like cameras, vibration sensors, and other sensors on the mine. Then we've got advanced process control engineers that will use a computer on a mine and actually implement this advanced control system by establishing communications with the plant's existing PLC or DCS that they have there, so that we can do the inputs and outputs to do optimization. And then we've got our cloud computing team that will actually establish communications with the company's operational technology, their OT system, and stream the data from the mine to a cloud platform, which then makes it accessible to experts all around the world to view the process operation in near real time. So implementing all of that is probably a 2 or 3 month process before all the technologies are kind of up and running. And then from there, there's a big optimization strategy, which is really a very close collaboration and partnership with our clients.
How much of that time, of those 2 or 3 months, how much of that time would the mill actually have to shut down
well, typically we'll tie in with an already planned shutdown. So
right,
we will not cause the mill to shut down.
Right. Yeah. No, I figured that. So you'd be timing with a shutdown. Your team would go because your team actually has to physically go in and put some of these sensors on and things like that. Right.
Yes, I mean, like I told you, we have trained some of our clients to do that in the past. But yes, typically we would send some of our personnel to help during an actual shutdown.
Before I wrap up, the last question I have is, okay, so if you gained a mine 7%, this mine got 25%. In the future of mining, is there another 7% available? Is it like another 2 for that other mine? It's another 3 or 4. Or most of those gains now, is it about getting all these other operating mines onto the same systems? If that makes sense, how I'm asking that.
Yeah. No, look, it's a very good question, but and I think um, it's an interesting thing in the mining industry that over time things change. For example, you might be digging in one area today, and you get an ore of a certain competency and hardness, but tomorrow you're going to a different section. So you know, things change. And depending on what you process at a specific point in time, there might be further improvements you can do. Now, also, the other thing is we always say we go from bottleneck to bottleneck, and that's how we actually get these improvements. So you hit some sort of a limit of where you're operating. Now, you might say, well, my mill is now maxed out. But I've gone to some companies and they said, well, the mill's design capacity is 500 tons an hour. And you go there a year later and they're operating at 650 tons an hour. It's like, oh, how did you do that? Well, they might have just changed some of the things they do. They might have added a pebble crusher, or they might have changed their primary crushing system. So there's always opportunities to improve at mining companies. It's just that's what engineers do, is they solve problems, and it's solving the next problem.
Now I'm going to completely break my word because that leads me to another question that I have to ask is, okay, so you put these optimization, you put cameras and sensors and it's going up in the cloud. Do you then sometimes have to go give the bad news going in? Because you just mentioned they swap out their crushing system.
Yeah.
Do you have to be the bearer of bad news sometimes and say, yeah, we can increase your throughput, but those crushers, it has to be.
Oh, that's what we do every week, is focus on the bad news, because it's always the bad news that's going to solve the problem. Is the fact that the thing that's kind of glaringly obvious that they need to fix, and that's where there's some heated discussion, is hang on a minute, this is the thing that we need to focus on, because there's always something to focus on, and if you focus on the wrong thing, you might not get to your next goal in the time frame that you want to get there. And absolutely, there's quite often people want us to do one thing. You go to the mine and say, I want to optimize the mill, and you look at it and you say, well, actually, it's not the mill that's your problem, it's your thickener, right? Or it's something downstream. This pump is too small, or that. So that's really on a day-to-day basis how we approach it.
Well, I always have a leadership. I usually have a leadership question. So this is perfect. I mean, there are some characters in mind. It's not an industry full of pushovers.
No.
That's not known for. How do you approach that conversation when I mean, you probably got to know this person over a few years, and someone
Yeah.
who not ready for that information.
Look, I think at the end of the day, what it's leading into is the industry. It's really the industry of people. And so what we're looking at is the technology that we have should be there to enable the people. It's a tool that they should take ownership of it. So I think we can, people have a name for it. It's called change management, right? They're used to doing things in a certain way. Maybe you need to do things in a different way. Now, typically, for example, some of the meetings that we have in a MOROC session might have a control engineer, it might have the process manager, there might even be an operator or a shift supervisor, and then there'll be some guys on our side that helps the clients to improve. We also have a partner, Allway Mineral Consultants, that's part of the MOROC consulting team. And yeah, it's working through those issues with clients in an open forum where everybody is equal, and it's not dictating how things should be done. It's really reaching consensus on how we should move forward with optimization strategies. Sometimes there's compromises that have to be made by various parties, but ultimately, if everybody works together, then you can end up with the best result.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, one of these days, I'm going to get invited into one of those conversations because I would love to hear it. I mean, I've been in change management discussions in other sectors, but in this case of big investments like your milling circuit and your flotation and all that, that must be
Yeah.
some very interesting discussion.
No, absolutely, but I think what we found is, and obviously the results are not always the same from one client to the next, but the
Right.
best result, as I always say, when everybody is actually sitting on the same side of the table.
Yeah.
When we work with clients, we don't have a vested interest other than to help them because they've already subscribed to the service. So we're there, we're helping them. We're not looking for career advancements in the company. We're there to solve the
Right.
problem, so, and I think that's what a lot of clients, as soon as they realize it's a non-threatening situation and we're working together to solve an engineering problem, then that's usually when people drop their guard, that's when
Right.
you get the best result.
We could do a whole episode about change management. I'm realizing that right at the end. I was like, this is
Yeah.
a good topic. So,
Oh,
uh,
thanks for that. That's really good.
but Peter, we'll leave it there. It's great to have Molycop on. I mean, I know everybody in the industry has known of the company for a long time. So
Sure.
it's just another one of those great companies to have on and feature on the show. I certainly hope we do it again. I don't know if you
Absolutely.
ever come to Vancouver, but
Oh, I've
would
been
you?
there a couple of times.
Okay. Well, next time, let us know. If stop by and say hi, or maybe we'll arrange to do an in-person episode. But it was great to have you on.
No worries. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
And thank you everybody for watching. You can connect with Peter on LinkedIn. You can follow Molycop on LinkedIn. Please subscribe to our channel. Keep suggesting guests. There'll be some of the services and products that Peter referenced will be linked in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. You can just go right there. Thank you, everybody. We will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.